So here we are now with a new SD Radar Futures Day Workspace layout. And the first thing that the observant viewers among you will notice is that, wait a second, the charts changed and so did the numbers over here in RadarScreen. The reason for that is that I stopped recording last night at around 10, 11 o'clock, and now half a trading day has gone by. It's Friday afternoon, around 3 p.m. And you may notice that we were looking at this Dow. The last chart we had open was this Dow 30-minute. And look at that zone we had there. I commented briefly on it. It wasn't planned, but I commented briefly. Wow, that was a nice zone, and that really was a nice zone. That really did work very, very well. Even though this whole chart was in a downtrend, this one still caused quite a bounce after it filled last night around 2 o'clock. So that's that, but that's not really what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the new layout. The first thing you will notice is that this top left chart, the top left entry chart, is much larger now. Now let me just flip back to the classic legacy workspace. You see, essentially we're looking at the same thing, the same Dow 30-minute, you know, the 4 charts, and here we enlarged that chart quite significantly so that you do not have to maximize the chart quite as often. So that is one problem that we've addressed there. Not always, because sometimes you will want to maximize, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just that the fewer times you have to do it, the better. Conversely, the other entry charts that we have, the 5, the 10, and the 15 are much smaller, and we now added the 20 and the 30 so that we're fulfilling all of the different intervals that we're scanning for in RadarScreen. And what could be simpler than that? So whatever you're clicking at here, and let's say by the way, there's a new zone that just popped up here, newly formed zone, that's the orange there. Whatever we click out here, that will of course update the symbol on all of these charts. So let's click on something else. Let's click on the Russell. And whatever you click at here will be the exact interval you're going to see in this top left, but these other auxiliary charts are fixed at 5, 10, 15, 20, and 30 minute. So essentially the principle is the same, and you should feel right at home, except now you have more room in that main chart. And what this hopefully prompts you or encourages you to do is to not so much go through every single symbol and look at all 4 or 6 charts, but rather to go to where do we have some action, and essentially you follow the colors for that. The colors, I mean, we have a zone that's close by, or we have a zone that was newly formed. So you follow the colors, and where you see there's activity in a particular interval, you click that, and that's what you get up here. In this case, a 15-minute. All right, there's a supply zone that's close by there, and then you can review it based on that. And then you can take a peek at the other ones to see if there's anything else that interests you in these other intervals, or you can see if that zone that we're reviewing here, in this case that nat gas 50-minute zone, does that have a matching a zone on the other time frame? That's always important. That's always interesting to see. So in this case, you see, this is a 50-minute, but you see that this is also on the 30-minute. There's a similar one, not quite. It's a little higher up. It's actually this cluster up here. So this exact zone does not have a match on the other intervals. That's always something. If you do see a zone on one of the intervals, also shows up. Also, let me try that again. Also shows up on one of the other intervals. That's always a confirming factor. That's always something that should give you more confidence in the zone that you're about to trade. So that's the layout of the charts. You have 6 charts now to fit the RadarScreen, and you have a much larger primary entry chart. And the goal is to encourage you to simply follow the RadarScreen, let it direct you to where the zones are, and then review that in the last screen, and then just take a peek or take a glance at these other charts to see if there's anything else of interest, or if the zones that you're reviewing actually is confirmed on any of these other intervals. I hope that makes sense. The next thing I want to show you on this new layout is the high time frame chart. Now, you remember we came from a Dow 30-minute chart up here that showed a Dow 180-minute chart over here. That's what we had in the classic workspace. Remember we had that. Come on, TradeStation, let me show you that. There we go. So this is what we had, the Dow, the 30 and the 180, which we used to value that, which we talked about. And so we now switch to nat gas 15 minute. This also changed to nat gas, but it's still stuck at 180. So that was one of the other things I pointed out. What we have now is something new. It says link, which is short for high time frame link. Click to update the high time frame chart. What do we do, you think? Well, yes, of course, we click it to update the high time frame chart. And that will automatically, once TradeStation has downloaded the data, I should add, update it to the appropriate high time frame chart for a 15-minute entry chart. In this case, it shows that direction is up. We're going from this newly formed demand zone up to this supply zone, and even before that newly formed demand zone was formed, we actually had already touched into whatever previous demand zone was below and started moving higher. So direction is clearly up. There's plenty of room up. This is actually a good place to start look for longs. It is not a good time to look for shorts. That means this zone here, we're not interested, right? So that we're not interested. So that's how that works. How you review a zone that way. By the way, what you can do in this case is you can simply right click it and say invalidate. That will mark it as not interesting, and that will also take it away from so it's no longer colored and it's no longer showing up over here. So that's how you're supposed to do that. That's old functionality. There are plenty of videos that cover that from previously. But the main thing was this this new feature, the high time frame link, that automatically adapts your high time frame charts to your primary entry chart. And let me dig a little further into that. So, High Timeframe Link, HTF Link it is called, is a new indicator included in the SD Zones package. It is added to this chart here and this chart here. And let me show you. If I right click here and go to Studies, Edit Studies, you'll see there is SD Zones as expected, which shows the lines of course, and then HTF Link, which is that new indicator. And it is the one that produces this text down here, this text label down here, which I call a link title, that shows link high time frame chart 5x to indicate that this chart here is the high time frame chart, and it is set to always be 5 times the entry chart. Then that indicator is also added to this chart here, the primary entry chart. Let me show you that. If we go to Studies, Edit Studies, and here we have a number of other indicators. We have SD Zones, then we have all the ATR and tick size and volume that we see down here, and then you have high time frame link added to this one as well. And here it does not produce a text because I chose to hide that because there's no serves no purpose here. But you do see it down here where it says link, and this is the entry chart. And basically it works. I mean, this function is very, very simple. Every time you have a change to the entry chart, it will send a memo to the high time frame chart and say update to reflect what is the symbol and interval of the entry chart. What could possibly be simpler? Well, unfortunately, it is wildly complicated because TradeStation doesn't have a function for this. If it had that, I would have delivered this many, many years ago, but it doesn't. So I had to implement this in a little more hacky kind of way. This is not your problem, but I do need to share with you what's going on behind the scenes, because you will run into it sometimes, and I do want you to be prepared for that. So let me just show you that. The best way to show you how HTF Link works is, curiously, by disabling it temporarily or suspending it. We can do that very easily. Now, notice again, we have this baby blue link title down here that shows this is the high time frame chart. It is set to be 5 times the entry chart. We left clicked it before, and that was how we updated it. And let me show you that again. If we change to something else like the Dow 3 minute here, that's highlighted. And then again, this will change to a Dow 3 minute chart, obviously. This one will still be set to 120 minute chart. It will change to the Dow. Why? Because TradeStation has its symbol link set. So we have blue symbol link here and we have blue symbol link. So it will update to the Dow, but the interval will not update because TradeStation doesn't have a feature for that. And that is what the HTF link is meant to do. And again, this one turns from baby blue, the link title turns from baby blue to red to tell you this is what you want to do. To update this one, just click it. And you would click it and it updates. But if instead of clicking it or left clicking it, you right click it, you get a little context menu, a little pop-up menu. That pop-up menu gives you a couple of options, actually only 3. One of them is the same as you get when you left click it, namely update the high time frame chart now to 5 times the entry chart. So that's just another way of getting what you're getting when you left click it. There's also one that says update the high time frame automatically update the high time frame. So what that does is that instead of showing the red and waiting for you to click, it'll do it by itself. There's a reason why we don't have that enabled all the time, but we will later. I will show you. And then there's one third function that is just to suspend it. Just put it in a dormant state, and if you click that, it will suspend it, and it will also suspend it over here. And when we do that, I can show you what is really taking place behind the scenes when you use a High Timeframe Link. So let me make this change. Again, right now we are on a Dow 3-minute entry chart, and it uses the 5 times 3 minute being the 15-minute. That's a very low high time frame chart, and you can change if you want to go that low, but that's what we chose to do here because it is appropriate. It is 5 times the entry chart, and that's what it shows, the Dow 15 minutes. Again, let's try what happens. Let's say we go down to this oil 10-minute chart that has a highlighted zone that's 26 minutes away. And that is this zone here on a 10-minute chart. And there's another one down here. In order to evaluate these zones in this chart, 10-minute, we want to go to a 5 times oil chart over here. No longer just the 15-minute that we had before. We need to go to a ideally 50, but let's just use a 60 because that's a more common time frame. In this case, it didn't do it because I suspended High Timeframe Link. So what is happening is TradeStation uses its symbol link to update this chart to oil. It uses its interval link, the yellow here. Come on, there we go. The yellow interval link, it uses that to update the interval in the entry chart. Now that's easy enough because we want the same interval over here as we click over here, but it cannot give us a 5 times interval in the high time frame chart, which is what we're trying to accomplish here. So this one is just still showing the 15-minute because we suspended High Timeframe Link. The way you would do this manually is you would click this chart and you would type 60-minute. Yep. You would type 60-minute or change it from the menu in there, and that would then update it. It'll take a minute to a second to download the data, and that would then update this to an oil 60-minute chart. That's very similar to what will be going on. Well, basically, that's what High Timeframe Link does as well. The entry chart sends a memo, the High Timeframe Link, when it is enabled, sends a memo to the High Timeframe chart, and that memo, once it's received, just takes this and fires a command like that 60-minute you saw me enter before, and that will update the chart. Now, you might think, well, that's fine. What's the problem with that? Really, the problem with that is it's not the most stable or not the most robust way to update a chart. What if you're clicking away over here and by the time it gets to actually receive that memo and fire that command, what happens is that 60-minute command will actually be entered over here instead, right? So this is not so there are times when this is not the most robust way to make this update, but it sure is so convenient, and it sure is very, very practical for always looking at an appropriate high time frame chart in this window, and that's why I've implemented it, even though it is not the ideal way for me to implement functionality. I'd like something more robust. I hope that makes sense. By the way, as regards to this particular 10-minute zone, we can't trade that at all because look how close these are to each other. We came up from supply, we came up from demand, up to supply, then down again to demand, and it's just stuck in here. Until one of these breaks, we cannot do anything on this chart. It's just sit on your hands time. All right. All right. Let's resume HTF Link again and dig a little deeper into its functionality. So we right-click it here. We say resume HTF Link on the HTF chart, and that will also send a memo that resumes it over here. So now it's active again, and we can confirm that by, let's see, we click something else. We want to be clicking on the British pound 30-minute, and that will give us that. That's that 30-minute chart zone right here. This one is already gone. Again, this is stock. We can't trade this, but that did update the high time frame chart to British pound as well, but it is still sitting at 60 minutes, and now we have the baby blue link title changed to red, so we left click it and that will update it to the 180-minute. Now let's say we do enable that automatic HTF update feature I showed you before. I can right click here and I can then enable that, and that will put a little checkbox here to say automatic high time frame update is enabled. But what is all this green text? This green text is a warning to you. It says this: TradeStation's simple and interval link must be manually disabled, that is set to not linked, in the high time frame chart when using automatic high time frame update. What does that mean? Well, it means TradeStation simple and interval link must be manually disabled, set to not linked in the high time frame chart when using automatic high time frame update. So basically, these two little links here, when they are enabled, if we switch to high time frame link like this, again you'll see the checkbox there. What happens is this: that the moment a change happens to this entry chart, this chart will automatically try to steal focus in order to fire that command and then update itself. We can do that easily. Let's go to a 3-minute gold chart here, and you'll see it probably will do that. And in this case, actually it didn't. What the heck? What happened? The reason is this: because of the symbol linking, what happened was TradeStation automatically changed this chart. It reloaded this chart to a gold chart with the 180 interval it had before, and that happened before the memo was received. So this entry chart sent a memo over to this chart, and while that memo was on its way, the chart was updated by TradeStation behind the back of my indicator, so it never received the memo. That's what happened. You see that? I can click it manually. It's not like any disaster happened here, but that's what happened. So that is why that warning is there, that when you use the automatic high time frame update, you really want to disable automatic or disable TradeStation interval and symbol link, because otherwise you can have a mess. I tell you, you can have a mess, because you can and will see that commands that you thought were going to be firing over here suddenly get sent in here or to some other chart, and things happen that you wouldn't want. So when it is enabled, set to auto, you choose not linked for your TradeStation symbol link and your TradeStation interval link if you had those. And when you do that, you can use this feature, even though the caveat, the warning about it not being quite as robust a feature are still there. You can still have situations where everything don't go exactly according to plan. That does not mean your trades are, it's not going to send orders or do anything really dangerous that way. It's just that you could get a little bit of a mess. You could have something, suddenly a line appearing in here that you didn't put there, or a chart changing to an interval you didn't expect. That's the worst that can happen, but that's still bad enough. All right, so let's just show with this auto feature now enabled. Again, it is checked here. Let me just show you that. So we can change to our heart's content here. We can change up to this NASDAQ 3-minute, see what's there. And boy, is that a sideways market up here. And in this case, we did get that. Where is that? Oh, that's way down here. See, 28 minutes away. So it's way down here, that 3-minute demand zone. But now, in this case, HTF Link automatically updated this chart. It took over the duty of also updating the symbol. So it sent an update both of the symbol and the interval. And we can start going through this. We can take more NASDAQ charts. And again, High Timeframe Link will perform the updating over here. We can go to the Russell 5-minute, and it will update that. And as soon as that's updated, it sends a memo and it'll update this. That all looks fine and dandy here. Where the problems come in is when this market is really, really busy, when TradeStation takes time to send data, when you have little PD showing up here that shows pending data and TradeStation is waiting for data. That is when suddenly High Timeframe Link never gets its memo, or TradeStation interrupts it halfway through by updating, by backfilling data. All kinds of things can happen. But again, it's no big thing. It's not like your trades are going to be sabotaged. It's just that you can get a little bit of a out of sync situation with some things. So that's basically how the update feature works when it's set to automatic. And it is also why my default in these workspaces are to keep it disabled, so that whenever you have and have TradeStation simple linking enabled, so that you can click here to your heart's content. It is not going to be causing a mess, and it will update over here. And for instance, let's say you were looking at, in this case we were looking at a 10-minute chart. We'll update this to a 60-minute chart like this. Let's say you go to another 10-minute over here in a gold, for instance. There are no zones are highlighted, but we can do that. Well, there won't need to be a click because it's already a 60-minute, and you will notice that, and it will stay baby blue, and there won't be a problem, and there won't be anything that needs to be updated. Once you go to a 20-minute chart or something else, it'll turn red and tell you need to click it. I mean, it's not like this is not rocket science to use, as long as you're aware of the risks that I warned about earlier. So, as you can see, High Timeframe Link or HTF Link really is incredibly convenient for having a high time frame chart that automatically adapts to your entry chart, and is very easy to use. There isn't much to it as long as you're aware of these quirks that I mentioned before. But there are, thanks to these quirks which are due to the way TradeStation forces me to implement it, there is a little bit more of the sausage making behind High Timeframe Link I need to show you. And to that end, I'm going to show you what if you want to add High Timeframe Link to one of your own workspaces or to a new workspace you built, because that will show you what's going on a little bit behind the scenes. So let us create a new workspace. We'll go to File, we'll go to Workspaces, we'll say New Workspace, and in here we'll create a new chart. Go to File, New Application, Chart Analysis. That will create a chart window. It will just inherit the settings from the last, in this case, entry chart we had, which was gold, 5-minute. That's fine. I default to the black background because that's my preferred, but of course you might have a white as your preferred. That's fine. And we'll take this chart and we'll make a copy of it. Say copy this window and make a and paste this window. And now we have two of them, and we'll deem one of them to be our high time frame chart to make things easier. Let's just say window arrange all. So let's just call this our entry chart, this our high time frame chart. It hasn't been updated to the high time frame yet, but guess what? We have an indicator for that. And the way you do that is this: you add the high time frame link indicator. You may have a toolbars for that. I keep my toolbars hidden, but you can just right click the chart background, go to Studies, Add Study. If you scroll down the list of indicators, and again, it is an indicator, it's not a show me or paint bar or something else, it is an indicator, and if you scroll down, you'll find High Timeframe Link. Before you click OK, check the prompt for editing, because that will bring up this one here, which is where you enter the inputs for the indicator. Pretty much all indicators in TradeStation have inputs, is where you configure and control them. That is true of this one as well. It is also true of SD zones. It's just that for most of the daily uses, I've created user interface, the settings panel and the context menu to make it easier to use it without going and changing the inputs all the time. But you can always go back to the inputs. That's where everything is really based. And that is true here as well. And most of these inputs you don't have to pay much attention to, but the first one you absolutely do. When I point to the name of it, it's called entry or high time frame, and it shows you what are the possible values. And the possible values are 1 for the entry chart and 2 for the high time frame chart. And then it also shows a little reminder that when you use a high time frame in the high time frame chart, you want to make sure that TradeStation's symbol and interval link must be set to not linked, the way we talked about before. The third value you can enter here is 0, which is a default value, which means it's suspended. So if I just click OK, it will just lie dormant. It won't do anything. But since we don't want to do dormant, we want to do something, we'll just enter 1 so that this becomes the entry chart. We click OK, and what you will see is this adds now a link title down here that says this is the entry chart. That's the one I chose to hide before on the in the workspace, in the SD Radar workspace, but here it's actually showing it. So now we have it added to our entry chart. Adding high time frame link to the high time frame chart isn't much harder. We right click again. We say add study here, and we click high time frame link. Make sure prompt for editing is enabled. We click OK. It comes up, and this time, surprise, we don't click enter 1 here. We enter 2 for high time frame chart, and we click OK. And when I do that, I'll show you a gotcha, the first gotcha, the sausage making I talked about before. So it'll say, the first thing it'll say is, okay, this one is not in sync, right? This one is a 5-minute chart. It needs to be 5. We want it to be 5 times the entry chart. Something not working. So you click it, and nothing happens. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. After a little while, it'll bring this error up. And that is a clue to something that you need to understand about. You really do need to understand. about how HTF Link understands. So let me just read this for you, because you're probably never going to read it yourself. The command to update the high time frame chart failed to run. Yeah, so something didn't work. Then it says, in the high time frame chart, that's this chart over here, on the customize indicator, that's the dialog we had open before, on its general tab, we only looked at the inputs tab, on the general tab, enable run command and select confirmation off. Phew, that's a mouthful, and that's only half of it, but let's just go over here. So in this here, we go to the customize indicator. The way to get to that is to go to studies, go to edit studies, and in here we go to click high time frame link, and we'll click customize. That's a customize indicator. That brings this window up again, and we could have done this before, but I wanted you to see this error so you know what to expect and when to react when you see that error. So we go to the customize indicator, the general tab as they call him. The general tab is this one here, and in there is something called enable run command and select confirmation off. Okay, so enable run command. So this is a command that allows easy, when you have this checked, it allows easy language to fire commands the way you saw we were doing. Without this, easy language will not be allowed to fire commands. Easy language being the programming language used to code my indicators. Without that one enabled, it will not be able to receive these commands. Now, SD zones, which you know does not need this thing, but high time frame link does, which is why here we have to enable that. There's something else to it. It says confirmation has to be set to off, because otherwise, if it's set to on, then every time high time frame link wants to fire a command and update, TradeStation will prompt you, say, are you really sure I want to do this? Because this could be something dangerous that's going on, something that you do not expect that this indicator is doing behind your back. Well, you have to trust me on this, that you don't want to leave this one on. You do want to accept these commands that my software is firing. So you set this to off, and then you will get this letter from TradeStation's lawyers to make sure that you understand that you are aware of the grave danger that you're putting yourself in, how high time frame link could file. It could essentially send orders on your behalf. There's all kinds of things it could do, and they want you to scroll down and read all of this. And if you agree, then they feel indemnified. They feel they don't have any risk, and you can click I agree. And then once you click OK, things should actually start working. So that's the thing you have to do. Now, I took longer. Normally, it's just 1-2 point. You're done. You set it. You added it. It's not a big deal. But I just wanted you to understand what's going on behind the scenes. Let me just click close here. Before I click OK and close this error message, I want to point out TradeStation doesn't allow indicators to set this themselves for reasons, because they do want. There's a security aspect. They want to make sure you are aware that this is an indicator that wants to fire commands in this chart window, and specifically in this case where we have the confirmation set to off, they want that letter from the lawyers to be shown to you first. Now, it also says this, that if you already had it set up, if run command was already enabled, then what may have happened may just be that another window may have had focus. I mentioned that before, right? If RadarScreen, we had RadarScreen over here, that if you were clicking away in RadarScreen while high time frame command was trying to fire that command, then you may get a problem where it's trying to get focus over here, but it's not really working, and you would also see this error. So this error can show either if that run command was not enabled, that we just enabled here, or even if it's enabled, if there was a glitch that caused it not to catch it. If that is the case, you just click the high time frame link link title down here to update again, right? So if you know you set everything up correctly, you just click this one again and it will usually do it. In this case, now we have updated, so we click here, and if all goes well, it should update this to a high time frame chart, and we are in business. That means we can change this to a 3-minute chart, and this one over here will say click to update. All right, it will change to a 15-minute chart, or we can change this to say a 20-minute chart over here, and this one will go red. Oops, let me just get that out of the way. This will go red, and you can we'll change that to a 120-minute chart. Or, as I showed you before, we can right-click it and enable the automatic high time frame update, because we have not enabled, we have not set any of the TradeStation simple or interval links, so we can do this without endangering ourselves. When we do that, it's all going to be automatic. If I entered a 2-minute chart, it would also go to a 15-minute. I'll get to that in a moment. Why is that? Why doesn't it do a 10-minute chart here? If I go to a 180-minute chart over here, it'll change to a 900-minute chart, and so forth. If I go to a 240-minute chart, it'll update this one to a 1200-minute chart. And you may be surprised if we go to, say, a 360-minute chart. Oh, wow, it changes to a daily chart. Why is that? That's because 1440 minutes is the highest TradeStation will let you go. After that, the only thing higher is daily, and then after that is weekly and so forth. So if you were to go to something really high, let's say you were to go to a 600-minute chart here, it'll still go to a daily because that's the closer it has to something that's 5 times 600. Let's say we go one higher, we go up to 960. Eventually, it'll change it to a weekly. So I think you get the picture here. High Timeframe Link will always attempt to find an interval that is 5 times your entry chart, whatever that may be, and or the closest to it, right? So in this case, let's go back to something that's more appropriate for day trading, for swing trading also, which is 15-minute here, and you'll see how that works. All right, so far still pretty simple. Let me dig a little deeper, but because there is one more thing you need to see. The observant viewers among you, I'm sure, will have wondered, where does this 5 times come from? Why is it always 5 times the entry chart? And while we're at it, why is it not 5 times? Why is it not 75 minutes, which would be exact 5 times the 15-minute? Where does that come from? Let me show you that. If we go to the Customize Indicator dialog again, and to the Inputs tab, and let me show you that. We went there before. Let's go again. Studies, Edit Studies. We click High Timeframe Link, we click Customize, and this time we don't want the General tab, we want the Inputs tab, and here we'll have the inputs for High Timeframe Link. And the first one you'll notice here is High Timeframe Interval Multiplier. That's not that hard to understand. So this is the multiplier, this is the factor you apply to your entry chart to arrive at an appropriate high timeframe interval. And the default value I put in there is 5. But you can enter anything you want. If you want something else, you can do so. If you want to say, listen, I really want 15 times. That's just, screw you, Thomas. That's what I want to do. That's fine. You can do that. And you click OK. And we'll get close. And it will have turned red down here because it says we need an update. There's an update needed. When you click it, it will update this to a 240-minute, which will be 15 times your entry chart over here. So that's how that works, right? That's not too hard to understand. Now you can choose any multiplier you want within reason. So yes, I recommend 5 to 10 times, but you could really, again, enter in the value you want, but it doesn't allow anything higher than 100. That's just because it's senseless. You don't want to go higher than that. This just doesn't make sense. And also, you cannot enter negative values, so they will also stop. If you get an error message if you try to do those things. But other than that, you can enter any number between 1 and 100. Now, let's look at something else, because we're back to the whole, why did it round up to 120 before? So once again, I'll open the Customize Indicator dialog, but this time I'll use the fast route. If you right click down here, you know that of course you'll get this little context menu. We saw that before. But if you shift right click, you just get TradeStation's normal pop-up menu for when you click a text label on a chart. So this is not me, this is not HTF Link showing this, this is just TradeStation showing this. Again, if you click Shift or even Control, that would show the regular menu, text box here instead, or regular pop-up menu here instead. And what you can do is you can say Edit Text, and then TradeStation will say, wait a second, do you want to edit this text? Don't you want to edit the study that added it? And that is what you want, so you just click yes. So that's just a shortcut that, in 2 mouse clicks will take you straight to this Customize Indicator dialog. And that's how I always do it myself. And if you get used to that, you'll save a little time opening a Customize Indicator for any indicator, not just for mine. Now, let's change this back to 5, which is again what I recommend, but again you could choose anything you want. There is an input called high time frame minute intervals, and you'll see this list of the different intervals for minute-based charts, which I have entered. I created this list, and it says 15, 30, 60, 120, 180, and so forth. So that is why it didn't go to 75 or to 90, or it doesn't go to 42 minutes. You know, you could if you wanted, but it doesn't do that by default. So let me just show you what happens here. If I took this list and deleted the whole list, just leave an empty string. You need to have the I'll just cut this one out. So you need to have an empty string. You can't leave it completely empty. You'll get an error from TradeStation. But as long as you have the apostrophes there, it'll be an empty string. And if you have an empty string, and by the way, it says that right in here. It says what are the minute intervals you want to use. Sorted, comma separated, and it will round to the higher value. If you enter a blank, it'll use any minute interval. So if I click this and click OK, again, it'll tell me, you know, you need to update. I click update, and lo and behold, you'll get the 75. If I choose to have a 7-minute chart over here, well, guess what? You'll have a 35-minute chart. So whatever you enter, you're not going to have the exact 5 times, and if that is what you prefer, you can have that. Personally, I prefer, and that's my default I put in there, is that it will round to a nearest sensible common interval, but that's just something I chose. It's not like it's one or the other is more correct. I just want to put it that way. So let me just go in again. I'll say edit text. I'll say yes, sir. Get me back in here, and what I'll do is I'll just paste that whole list of numbers in again. You could say, listen, I'm all fine with what you've done, Thomas, but I really want one more. I really want 90-minute in there, but other than that, I'm fine with all of these other ones you entered. And by the way, you will notice the highest one is 1440. That is also the highest number allowed in TradeStation. So if you enter anything higher than that, it will not go any higher, because TradeStation will not give you more than 1440 minutes. Then after that, High Timeframe Link will automatically switch to a daily chart. But let's just enter this, and you'll see what happens. And again, we'll say click High Timeframe to update. In this case, it'll round to 60 minutes because we're back to using the list. But in this case, let's say we go now to 15-minute chart, and now you should be getting a 90-minute instead of the 120 we got before, because you added 90-minute to your list there, and you are in control of that. All right, I hope that makes sense. It's not rocket science again. There are a few more features from inside the High Timeframe Link Sausage Factory I want to show you, so that you're aware of their existence. So let me just bring up the inputs list once again. Again, I shift right click the link title down here, and that gives me the TradeStation pop-up menu. If I say edit text and click yes, I get straight to the inputs list. You'd probably noticed before that in addition to the high time frame minute intervals, there's a similar input for high time frame second intervals. So this is for second-based charts. TradeStation will let you have charts based on seconds. I never use them because they're dreadfully slow and I have no use for them. But if you do, then High Timeframe Link will apply this list the same way it applied that list from the minutes on the minutes charts. In this case, it tops out at 300. That's not because you can't go higher with your second. You can actually go much higher, but it's just that after 300, it'll just do an exact 5 times or whatever the interval multiplier you use of the entry chart, instead of trying to round to the nearest numbers here. And the reason I don't go any higher is because 300, that's now a 5-minute chart. Why would you not just use a minute chart in that case? So that's pretty much what I'm saying. Then there's also for tick charts and shared charts, the intervals you want to use for that. These are blank because there I'm not trying to hit any specific interval numbers, because there are no common interval numbers. It's not like 120 or 1500 or something like that is particularly more common than anything else. So there we just use the exact numbers. So let me show you an example of that. I'm going to just cancel this because I'm not going to change anything. But let's say you are using this and you are going to say, I want to use a 300 shares. So that's a volume-based chart on my entry chart. I'm going to change my entry chart to a 300 shares chart, right? So every bar here is now 300 contracts traded. That's how that works. Well, guess what? It'll change that to 5 times. It'll change that to 1500 here over here. All right, that's not a big surprise. If I said I wanted a 1000 share chart, well, this one will become a 5,000 share. So it works the same with this, except here we don't limit it to any particular intervals that I have pre-selected. It's just whatever you enter. I mean, let me just point out, if you wanted to use a 1, 2, 3, 4 interval, then, well, that will be 5 times that will be your high time frame interval. Again, not rocket science there. And the same with tick charts, which we will show much more about in a minute. There are a few more high time frame link features I do want to show you. I don't want to spend a lot of time, but just go over them very, very quickly. Let me just open the inputs list again. You should be familiar with this procedure now. So here's the input list. The first is called shares not ticks. This is meant to force the high time frame chart. You enable this in the high time frame chart if you are using an old TradeStation version, older TradeStation 10 or even or TradeStation 9.5, they're not able to distinguish whether they are running in a share bars or a tick chart. So if your high entry chart is share bars, as in this case, and you're finding that instead of reflecting this as a share bars chart over here, it shows it as a 6,170 tick chart, that means that older TradeStation version is not able to see that. If you enable this one, if you set this one true, you will instruct High Timeframe Link in that High Timeframe chart to assume that, oh, we're using share bars, not tick bars, and then not tick charts, and then it will do it correctly. But again, leave this one false if you're using a TradeStation 10, because it'll figure it out automatically. You won't have to worry about it. The next one is Dynamic High Timeframe Timeframe. What that one is, that is a feature that automatically flips from minute charts up to daily charts if needed, or up to weekly charts, or even to monthly charts if needed, and down again. So if you disable that one, if you set this one false, that means it will stop at the ceiling of 1440 minutes. So if you were to enter an entry chart of, let's say, 1339 minutes, which is almost the ceiling, well, you will not be able to go past 1440 minutes in your high time frame chart, and that's what you will get in that case, because you will have told High Time Frame Link not to flip into the daily, weekly, monthly time frames instead. So basically, I'll say almost always leave this one true, because why would you not want it to automatically do that? But you can stop it from doing it if you want. Then there is an input called Automatic High Time Frame Update. This is essentially the same as you get when you right-click down here, right, where you can toggle this on and off. That's essentially the same thing as you're doing with that input. I recommend you leave the input at false, so that you have to enable it here manually and disable it again, because then you'll get the warning to say, hey, do make sure you disable the TradeStation symbol and interval link and all of that. And it's also more convenient, so I just want you to recommend you do that. If we look at the entry chart, let me just show you one more and we'll be done. We'll open the inputs over here. You'll remember in the SD radar workspace, we had the link title here hidden, so it didn't show up down here just to clutter up the chart. That is essentially this input here that is set to true by default, which means that will show the link title. If we set this to false, it will hide this one down here. Before I show you that, I just want to show you there's also a couple of options to control how this link title shows up. There's the font size, there's how far up from the bottom do you want it in pixels, and then finally there's one called link group name. This is one you would use in older TradeStation versions which are not able to distinguish which workspace they work in. Normally, High Timeframe Link will not work across workspaces. That is deliberate. We do not want you to have different workspaces, for example, different SD radar workspaces open, and when you change the entry chart in one workspace, all of the other high time frame charts in all the other workspaces change. We don't want that. So to prevent that, it will limit itself to work within the workspace. but that is not possible in older TradeStation versions because they do not have that ability to distinguish the workspace. So in there, you simply enter a name instead, and High Timeframe Link will limit itself to say, hey, we only link entry and high timeframe charts that are in the same family, that are in the same link group. All right, that was a whole long list, but at least I mentioned it here, and it's all described in the user guide, of course, so you'll be able to find it in there. Let me just click OK, so you can see that when we set this show link title to false, this will disappear from down here, boom, and it'll be up there instead, where it's out of the way, up on the TradeStation charts status line. If you change the subgraph to which it is applied, it'll change that. Let me just show you that, and we'll flip back to the SD Radar workspace, and in this workspace here, you'll see that we've actually put it. I actually put it on the, because we already had a subgraph used for tick size, for ATR dollar. That's just where the volume shows, and so we just squeezed it in down here to keep this other status bar, this other status line clean. That was all I wanted to talk about as far as the sausage making of High Timeframe Link. For the rest of this video, we'll talk about using it, but we'll not talk about how the sausage is made. I hope this all makes sense so far.